What's going on, guys? Just kind of wanted to talk about this Autoject 2 auto-injector that can be used for both humans and dogs. My dog was diagnosed with diabetes about maybe a month and a half ago, and being a hyper dog and a very active dog, usually I'll go ahead and say that he's pretty rebellious as well. We had issues giving him shots. Basically, at first he took the shots okay, and then eventually over time, even trying all the usual methods of training and everything, he would no longer take them. And it just became a very stressful situation. Every single morning was terrible, every single night was terrible. And then I finally stumbled upon this thing, reading upon some forums and stuff like that. So the logo is worn off, usually does say Autoject 2. So far as purchasing one of these, I'll go ahead and place a link down in the bucket. I think it's about $35 if I'm not mistaken. Every bit of it worth it. This has made my life so much easier. I will say that he's still kind of, I win some battles, I lose some battles with him. Sometimes he pulls away a little bit, but for the most part, this has made giving the injections much, much easier. So I just wanted to go ahead, there weren't too many videos on YouTube that showed how this thing works, so I figured I would go ahead and do that. So essentially what this does is it's a one-handed operation auto-injector. Essentially, the injector is placed inside this little tube here, and then this little mechanism right here, once this button is pushed, will push the top of the syringe down, and the insulin will come out of the bottom. Of course, they will still be injected with a needle. However, it does seem to be less painful, less noticeable, and it also helps folks with needle phobia, so that's a plus too. So let's jump into how this thing actually works. Very simple. One of the things that you'll get along with it is this little yellow piece here, and the actual unit looks like this. What happens is, and we'll see if I can get this to focus here. There we go, I think that's the best it's gonna get. So basically, there will be a guide that comes along with it, talking about the kind of syringes that you have and adjustments. It's a great guide to go by, however, the syringes that I've received from my vet are not mentioned in the manual, so you might have to do this manually. You can experiment with the needle length just by essentially taking the syringe, putting it inside, closing this shut, and just seeing how far the needle sticks out once you do that. Okay, so as for doing it, of course, you're going to prep your needle with insulin. I don't have insulin in there right now, of course, for the purpose of this demo. This little yellow piece comes into play just as a cocking mechanism. So this is a long tube here, as you can see, and this little cocking mechanism allows you to push this yellow piece all the way in until you hear a click. And then you're done with this piece. This is essentially just to help you push that in. From here, the needle is inserted into this bottom portion. I'm gonna push this down just a little bit to be a little more representative. Let's see, there we go, perfect. And then once the needle's in there, you will just go ahead and screw these pieces together. When you go to eject, there's one thing to note, that this is the firing button right here. This will not fire the needle until this system is pushed together. So, for example, if you're to push this into the skin, then you can press the button to release the needle. So once it's pushed in, you just push this button here, and as you can see down there on the left end, the needle has come through. There's two items to note about this. The first being that it does, depending on the amount of units that your dog is taking, it does take some time for the injection. It's a little slower than it would be if you were to do it yourself. This little yellow marker here, when it's injecting, keep an eye on this gauge. As it's injecting, as soon as you see this yellow appear, and it looks like this, the injection is complete. So it's good to keep an eye on that so you know that the injection is complete. That's one note. The second note is that a lot of reviewers have mentioned, and I'll cock this, is that the injector does make a pretty shockingly loud noise when it's fired. So I'm not sure how well you're gonna be able to hear this, but that does tend to startle the dog in the beginning. But I'm telling you, the best method to get your dog used to this device is to give fake injections, and that is to say not with a needle. So what I ended up doing to get my dog to take everything was essentially just cocking the mechanism over and over again. And essentially, without the needle inside, pressing this against my dog's scruff, firing it without a needle inside, and then giving treats, letting him smell the injector, get used to the injector. I'm hoping at least someday to get to the point where I'm giving him simply one injection in the morning and one injection at night. But for now, I'm actually giving him 2 fake injections and then 1 real injection, so he doesn't always associate this with pain. So, and every time after I give him an injection, whether it be fake or real, I give him a small training treat so he's not getting full up on beefy treats. But very useful device. It is my hope, or it would be my wish that when you meet with a vet that has, or you meet with a vet who's discussing your dog with diabetes situation, that they would just recommend this thing right off the bat. It's really done well for me. Might not work for everybody, but my dog is just incredibly hyper, does not like tense situations, and this has just really been a lifesaver. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. And once again, I have placed a link down in the bucket as to where you can obtain this.